Destination Nightmare, the B-Movie Podcast.
So, Tales of Terror.
Tales of Terror, after our talk.
We decided to watch Tales of Terror because it's got basically the same cast.
Yeah. Vincent Price, Joyce Jameson,
Basil Rathbone,
and Peter Lorre.
You exchange Deborah Paget in this one for Beverly Hills Barely in
Yes.
Comedy of Terrors or whatever. You got basically the same group of people.
Yeah.
Better movie.
Yeah, it was, and it was directed by Roger Corman, so
that helps.
That helps. He is such an excellent director with a minimal amount of stuff. So he could probably make a movie for $5, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure he has. You know, back in the 50s, the script by Richard Matheson again. You know, and in one story combining two stories, but we'll get to that.
Right.
And my favorite one of the three combining two stories, but that's cool. You know, I did a good job combining. Well, we'll get to it or whatever. I mean, the middle story is the one that I knew. The other two I'd never read before, the Morella and the M. Valdemar or whatever. So I knew the Black Cat one, but the middle one is not really just the Black Cat. It's the Black Cat and the Mask of Amontillado.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So this was made in, I think this was made in 61 and released in 62. I'm not sure. I think it's like the fourth of the Poe movies that he did. Usher, Pit and the Pendulum. I'm not sure what the third one. I'm not sure what the third one is, but I think this is the fourth one. I don't remember what the third one is. Was it Pit and the House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum? I can't remember right now. But at any rate,
House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum.
What was the third one?
Premature Burial.
Oh, that was the third one. That was the one with Ray Milland, I think. Yeah, it was with Ray Milland. They didn't get Vincent Price for that one. And then after this, I think it was a Comedy of Terrors.
Tales of Terrors. And then The Raven.
Oh, The Raven was after Tales of Terror?
Yeah.
And then Comedy of Terrors was after that? Oh, wow. Okay.
Mask of the Red Death. And The Tomb of Ligeia.
Where did Comedy of Terrors was before this or after this?
It doesn't have it listed as his Poe cycle.
That's right, because it's not a Poe movie, is it?
It's not really a Poe movie, yeah.
It's just a movie with the same cast or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So The Raven came before this?
After.
And what was the one before this? Oh, The Premature Burial with Ray Milland.
Yeah, and that's with Ray Milland and Hazel Court.
Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Okay. And that's the one that, for some reason or another, they couldn't get Price to do, or he might have been busy or something like that. But Price.
Another movie or.
And The Haunted Palace was based on a Lovecraft story. It was. It was
yes.
a Lovecraft. It was a Lovecraft story that they just kind of like decided to turn into a Poe movie or whatever.
Yeah, because at the time Poe was more well known than Lovecraft. Although he was
but Lovecraft got pretty popular.
Yeah, towards the middle and late 70s with that paperback book boom.
Oh, yeah, those freaky paperbacks that they with the weird faces on them or whatever.
Yeah.
That I bought a couple of them when I was.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, and I read those, and because that was my introduction to Lovecraft.
Yeah, definitely. So, and then AIP did a Lovecraft adaptation, which they didn't credit Lovecraft on in Die Monster Die.
Yes.
That's The Color Out of Space.
Color Out of Space, yeah.
And then there was another one called War Gods of the Deep around this time, but I don't think that was based on any of the. It was a Price movie, but I don't think it was based on any of Poe or anything like that. I'm not sure.
It was what's his name?
Jules Verne, maybe.
Yeah, I think Jules Verne.
Well, I know Master of the World, which was from this era too. I think that was with Jules Verne. One where they're on a blimp or something like that, and Price and Charles Bronson's in it. That one I think was Verne. I'm not 100% sure though, but I mean, you know what it is? If these movies all came out in the early to late to mid 60s, so you kind of lump them all together in a way, but they're not all Poe movies, you know?
War Gods of the Deep was 65.
That's Jack Turner, Jack Turner or whatever directed that, I'm pretty sure.
Turner.
Yeah, that was 65.
And it says it's based on a Edgar Allan Poe poem.
Oh, it is? War Gods of the Deep is?
The City in the Sea, yeah.
Oh, wow, so that's part of the Poe? I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, they don't seem to include it, so... But it is Wikipedia I'm looking at, so, you know.
And Master of the World, that had to have been Jules Verne, right? I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, that was Jules Verne.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by like the time of, I think the last one they did was Tomb of Lygia, which was, I think that was made in England too. I think that was like 65 or 66 or something like that. Then after that they went to do like biker movies and stuff, you know, and Beach Party. Oh, Beach Party movies.
Beach Party.
Beach Party were done simultaneously, I think, as the Poe movies. But Corman wasn't involved in those. That was AIP.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. But Price and Karloff and, you know, those guys would show up and...
Yeah, show up here. And they're probably on set filming something else. And
yeah.
Like, hey, as long as you're here, why don't you come do a cameo?
So anyway, this was...
Wasn't Karloff was in The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini?
He showed up in that, yeah.
Yeah.
He was in that and, well, obviously Comedy of Terrors he was in, and he was in the movie The Terror. Yeah. You know, the one that had like 5 directors or whatever, and Jack Nicholson's in it. And Karloff was also in The Raven.
Right.
And then he did a movie, I think it was Corman was involved in. I'm not sure. I know Peter Bogdanovich directed it, called Targets. You ever heard of Targets?
Yeah,
it's the one about there's a serial killer at a drive-in or something. Supposedly a good. I have it. We need to watch that one because that's like, I'm not sure if I ever watched it, but I own it, and that's supposed to be like a real well-made movie or whatever.
It is. I watched it too, and the ending is kind of not surprising, but interesting.
Yeah. It was kind of like old-time horror versus modern horror, which predates the slasher and the you know and the horror guys or whatever, you know. Yeah. That was, I think, 66 or something like that.
It is a good movie.
I own it. Was it 68? Was it that late in the game?
Yeah, 68.
Wow, okay. But anyway, so I actually like Tales of Terror. I hadn't seen it in a while because I do like the anthology movies. Yeah, because if one story's not that good, you know, whatever, there might be another better one, and that one might save the whole show or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, I remember one of my favorites was Tales from the Crypt when I went to see it at the theater, you know. I was like, oh man, this is so cool. But obviously the best one was the Peter Cushing one, you know, where he comes back from the grave or whatever without much makeup on, by the way. You know, he looked pretty, he was pretty creepy, you know, with minimal makeup, you know. But at any rate, yeah. I always liked this anthology, and this one's good. I especially like the middle episode because it was actually funny.
Yeah, it had a slight humorous, and sometimes horror or scary stuff is more effective when there's a little bit of humor in there to sort of cut, you know. It
kind of releases the tension for a while, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes when it's so tense and scary and there's a laugh, it kind of like, you know, it kind of like makes it even more intense or whatever, because when it gets scary again, you're like, oh God, you know, I'm on a roller coaster ride of laughing and, you know. But anyway, the first one was, the story was The Haunting of Morella.
Right.
Which I've did you ever read Poe stories when you were a kid in school? Or
yes, I've read, I don't think I read Morella, but I've read The Black Cat, Cask of Amontillado, The Facts of Valdemir,
Hop Frog,
The Raven. What would you say? Call it?
Did you ever read Hop Frog?
I don't think I've read Hop Frog.
What about the one Bernice, the one with the teeth? That's a rough one.
No, I didn't read that one either.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I remember, as a kid, I remember reading The Pit and the Pendulum.
Yes, I read that.
And going like, this is nothing like the movie.
Yeah, nothing like the movie. Well, that's what I did. After I think I saw some, one of the AIP Poe movies. I went to the library and got out a book of Edgar Allan Poe, and I was reading. And I remember it was probably I saw Pit and the Pendulum, and then I went and read the book, and I'm like, yeah, this is nothing like the.
It wasn't even a book; it was a short story.
Yeah, yeah, and it was. It's the first time I was reading that sort of gothic, dense, kind of story, and yeah, I mean, I would remember getting lost a couple of times, going, wait a minute, because you'd have like sentences that seemed like paragraphs long, and you're like, wait, I lost my place. What am I reading? And then because it's using some sort of old-fashioned words, so I had to go to the dictionary and look it up. And same thing with when I first started reading Lovecraft. Some of his words were new to me, so I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was like in the early '60s. It was like Poe was like Stephen King,
Yeah.
It was like all you ever saw was like Edgar Allan Poe movies. It was based on Edgar Allan Poe. There was actually a movie, one of my favorite Barbara Steele movies, Castle of Blood, where Edgar Allan Poe is in the movie. Well, not really him, but an actor playing him or whatever. And it was like, it was all over the place. And comic books, The thing about these movies, too, is like, I think this one was, and when this movie came out, there was also a comic book put out by Dell
Dell, Gold Key, and something else. They would put out like a lot of comic books based on TV shows, recent movies, and it was pretty cool because then you can kind of like, if you saw the movie, you could kind of relive the story by reading the comic book, and you sort of had it wherever you went. So and that's something I kind of miss.
Me too.
Because
Marvel would do it later on, but in the '60s, Dell was the king of that.
Yeah, and what they try to do now is try to capture a likeness, and they never really do. Like if you have a TV show, they always try to make it look like the TV rather than make it more comic book, and they overcomplicate it, and it's not as satisfying as it used to be. Yeah,
no, I mean back then it was like if you look at all these Dell books, it's like, seems like every movie got a Dell movie.
Yeah.
And not to mention they would also sometimes, it was done with this movie. I think I even have the paperback. They would do a paperback adaptation. Now, I don't know whether this movie, they just took the Edgar Allan Poe stories or they had somebody rewrite them, but I know there was a paperback of some of these.
Sometimes what they would do would be to write the movie version rather than copy the Edgar Allan Poe story.
Because I know that, like, in some paperbacks, infamous paperbacks, the two that I'll mention are Reptilicus and Conga. Those were all B movies, and they both had comic books from Charlton, I believe. Yeah, both of those were Charlton, yeah. Charlton would do sometimes some stuff, but not mostly Dell. But at any rate, they took the paper. So they had some guy write a paperback, and he wrote like some kind of like, oh yeah, there's a monster in it, but some torrid love story with like explicit sex or whatever, I can just imagine a kid, Mom, I just saw Reptilicus, can you get this for me? Oh sure. It was like, some explicit love scene, and it's like, damn, man.
Oh, that's funny, man.
Oh yeah, I can't believe they would do that. But at any rate, yeah. I probably told this story before, but here's a Poe story that I did, and I actually I was pretty creative on this one. I actually got an A on it. We had to do a midterm paper for high school actually, and I had just seen A Castle of Blood, the Barbara Steele movie. And the premise of that movie was there's a reporter comes to a tavern to interview Edgar Allan Poe and ask him like, how'd you get all these stories? And Edgar Allan Poe goes, no, I I was actually there. They're not, and he goes like, are you kidding me? And he goes, no, it's for real. And then some other guy talks about like, well, there's this, I forgot what the premise was, but there's the exact storyline. But anyway, there's a castle that he owns. And on the night that the guy's interviewing Poe, all these ghosts come back from the dead and reenact their death.
Yeah.
And so the guy goes, I don't believe this crap. And Poe goes, or Poe or the other guy goes, well, I'll bet you $100 you don't come out of there alive the next night. Or 1,000, well, whatever. But whatever they were about, he goes, yeah, okay, I'll take it. Because he didn't believe in the fantastic. Like when Poe said, no, that stuff happened for real. If it wasn't there, you reported it or investigated it, it was for real. So the guy goes, I don't believe in ghosts. So he goes to the castle, and lo and behold, that night, all the people come out, and he's like falls in love with Barbara Steele, and she's like, oh, you got to get me out of here, because it's like, all this weird shit happens on this night, blah blah blah, and the ghosts do come back, and and the guy never makes it, but it's the reporter guy, never makes it, but it's a very ironic ending or whatever. It's a good movie, but anyway. I saw the movie and I said, shoot, I got to write a term paper. How am I going to do this? And I go, oh, wait a minute. What if Edgar Allan Poe wasn't really, writing fiction? He was writing stories that happened for real. And I just remembered all these posters. I go, what if like he was there at the pen, and the teacher actually gave me an A.
Oh, cool.
Because maybe it wasn't that well written, but at least I referenced all these Poe stories or whatever. I wish I still had the damn thing, but I don't, because it was like 100 years ago or whatever. But yeah. So
that's
I
cool.
gotta give Castle of Blood and Barbara Steele and Edgar Allan Poe like a thumbs up for helping me ace my midterm exam in high school. So at any rate. Anyway, well, of course we've digressed from the storyline. So Tales of Terror, 1962. First story with 3. The Haunting of Morella, or just Morella.
Yeah. Morella. So it starts with the, stagecoach or coming up.
They always start with the stagecoach, don't they?
Yeah.
It's like the same stagecoach and the same fog, too. And the same burning castle, too. But anyway.
Actually, the movie itself starts with a beating heart, and then you're...
Price narrating it, yeah.
Yeah, talking about, this is the heartbeat of a dying man, and slowly the heart fades out, and then the first story starts, and Morella, she comes to this house, and her father's there, and...
Morella doesn't come to the house.
The daughter, Lenora, comes to the house. Yeah. And she finds her at the house all full of...
falling apart. It's all dusty.
It's falling apart. There's cobwebs everywhere. She's in the dining room, and you see the obligatory tarantula that stars in every horror movie crawling.
Yeah. Sparky the tarantula.
So she screams, and then Vincent Price comes along. He's like, "What are you doing here?" He says, "Oh, don't you recognize me, Father? You're my daughter."
Why are you here? He's giving her the crap,
Yeah, he looks terrible. He's all disheveled. He's drinking, and it turns out that you find out that Lenore is his daughter, and after she was born, the wife
mother died.
Was never the same, and she died after a party, and she always blamed Lenora, the child, for killing her. And then, Vincent Price, the father, is like, well, you should leave. I don't care what you do. And then he finds out the daughter is...
she's got an illness, right? She's going to die.
Wants to live. So then he's all protective of her. Then, she's walking around the house, and she finds the corpse of her mother.
That was actually a freaky scene, because I didn't expect that.
Yeah, that was kind of creepy looking.
Yeah.
And she finds the corpse of her mother still in bed, and she's like, why do you still have this here? And he, Price goes in, start waxing poetic, and, well, when she died, I died. She was everything to me. I could not bury her in the ground, and with all the worms and dirt and stuff. So then, that night, you see like the ghost of Morella come out of the corpse and walking down the hall, and goes to the daughter, and then you hear the daughter screaming and making noise, and Vincent Price runs in, and he sees her, and it looks like she died. So then he covers her up, and he's all distraught, and then you see he goes over, and she makes a noise, and he goes over and pulls the covers back, and it's Morella. She's alive and young and beautiful, and he's all shocked, and then she tries to attack him for some reason, although I don't know why she blames him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was, yeah.
Yeah,
she blamed him for it. Well, she blamed him for it from getting her pregnant and making her have the kid,
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, she's attacking him, and then he runs off, and he goes into the room where Morella is supposed to be, and he sees the daughter dead and all shriveled up and corpse-like. So apparently Morella was able to switch bodies and gain her youth, and then she's attacking him, and the fire. They knock over a candle or something, and fire starts and erupting in flame, and then he dies, and then the Morella, she falls on top of him, and then she turns back into the daughter, and then you see the corpse of Morella on the bed, and now she's smiling, and then the whole house goes up in flames. So
yeah, I mean, I guess Morella was a vengeful spirit or something like that. Yeah, I'm sure she blames Price for she blamed the daughter too. She hated the daughter too, for making her pregnant, and whatever happened or whatever. But it wasn't like like you said, it wasn't like an at birth pregnancy. It would happen, within a few months or something like that.
Yeah, and it was short on explanation. It was just all mood, and everything was set up for that weird twist at the end.
Yeah.
And it was, it was good. This, in some ways, this reminded me of Night Gallery with Rod Serling.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Because he had a lot of those, like the best ones where they had like 2 or 3 short stories rather than one long one, because they can sometimes be.
Because the long stories, they pad them to death.
Yeah.
The short stories, sometimes they go a little too fast. It's kind of like a tough. Call, because it's only like a half-hour story. These 3 were only like a half an hour, 25 minutes each, so that's why it felt like Night Gallery, more so than Twilight Zone, because it was like more horror or whatever. But it's kind of a fine line you got to deal with between, telling the story or padding it for a 90-minute, plot line or whatever.
Sometimes these stories are about, well, first off, Poe, where he writes, it's sort of this internal psychological horror, and that's kind of hard to put on the screen sometimes.
Yeah.
And also a lot of these stories, the whole point of them is to have some kind of shock scene.
Sure.
So, like you said, sometimes you can pad it so much that it loses its effect, and other times they're too sparse with the explanations or whatever. There's a lot of talking and exposition in this.
Or you can pad it so much that when the shock ending comes in, it's not that shocking anymore. You know what I mean?
That's true too.
That's the worst, when it's like, okay, I've gone through 90 minutes of this. Now what's the twist? That's it.
You're waiting for it.
At least with a half an hour, you're like, oh, okay, well, that was interesting. It didn't kill like 90 minutes. It only killed half an hour, so it went by quick. I get it. They switch bodies. Okay, cool. Next. You know what I mean? If this was made into an hour-long movie or 90-minute movie, the Morella, it would have been like, the story of them meeting, and then, them falling in love, and then the birth, and then, all this, just to give you the ending, which is kind of like, I won't call it predictable, but kind of,
Yeah. It could have spent a little less time with her first coming there. It could have been more like the daughter was living there, who had come and was living there, and Price accepted her, and then slowly she was being taken over by the mother until she was not able to finally switch. But
yeah, more. They could have added more takeover scenes, like the mother coming to the daughter in her dreams or something.
Yeah.
But again, that would have been a feature.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, it worked for me.
Yeah, within the rest of the movie, it worked. I think it's the weakest one of the three.
Yeah.
And, it's good that it's first because you kind of don't really remember the movie for that.
Yeah. So okay, and then now we go to the second one, which was with the black cat, but it's a black cat in the Amontillado, the casket of Amontillado or whatever. That was my favorite one. That seemed to be, and from what I read, that was originally Matheson wrote it as not as a half comedy, but as a serious story, and they decided a comedy, and they did it. And Peter Lorre was amazing in that. He was funny as crap.
And it was in some ways it was like a shortened version of the movie we saw last time, Comedy of Terrors.
Yes, it was.
Price and Lorre roles. And same actors.
Same actors, yeah. Joyce Jameson.
Yeah, it was much better one. It had more character development, and you could see how things progressed.
Yeah, of all the three stories, this was the one that had the most character development in it, too.
Right.
Because the last one is pretty much just just one scene, one long scene, maybe.
Yeah.
Or, no, I take it back. The other one did have. They went for months afterwards. But anyway, so basically, the black cat or the casket of Amontillado or whatever,
Yeah. So Peter Lorre is a drunkard, and he's coming home, and he has
He's hilarious. He's walking home and he's like, "Hey, can you give me some money? Can you?" Everybody's telling him to get lost or whatever. He's spitting at him. He's hilarious.
He sees like reptiles, snakes, and lizards and stuff because
he's drunk. He's wasted.
He's whatever. And he gets home and his wife's black cat keeps coming up to him and he keeps like throwing it away and shooing it away. And
the real story of the black cat was a lot more grim than this.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think in the black cat story, the cat actually causes the guy's death.
Yeah, he pops the cat's eye out or something. Yeah. It's pretty rough, but.
And then the cat gets it back at him and gouges out his eyes.
Yeah. Anyway,
so he's and Joyce Jameson is his wife,
who's a seamstress, and she has to hide money because Peter Lorre was a little drink at all if they don't have, if he's allowed to, they won't have any money to eat.
Right. So he's asking her for money, and he's breaking things and throwing things around, and he finds he like manhandles her and forces her to give him the money that she was saving for food. So he goes out drinking again, and they're in a bar, and Vincent Price is there, and he's a wine connoisseur.
Well, no, what happens was he's going back drinking, and he drinks, and then as he's leaving, he sees, like, a sign that says wine drinking contest, remember?
Right,
and he goes, yeah, he goes like, I can get some more booze out of this, okay, fine,
Right.
And it's all these upper crust, like, snotty people, snooty, snotty people there.
Yeah, the upper class. So he goes in, and they're all looking down at him because he's like always a common drunkard. So then Vincent Price is tasting the wine. He's doing silly things with his mouth and face, and
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Lorre's looking at him like, "What the hell are you doing?" So and when you do wine tasting, you take a sip, you swish it around, and then you spit it out. Peter Lorre's just chugging the glass.
Yeah, Peter Lorre goes like, "What's the big deal? I can guess every wine too." And like Price is looking at him, and he keeps going. Lorre keeps going at it and goes, "Okay, fine." Oh yeah, Lorre says, "What are you, a coward? You don't want to, He challenged him. He called him a coward that he didn't want to. And Price is like, "Fine, we'll do it." And then Price goes through all his stupid faces or whatever, which is. And Peter Lorre's like just chugging it down,
Right.
Price is like, "No, you're supposed to do it like this," and he's like, "I'll do it any way I want to," or whatever.
So Lorre gets drunk, And then Vincent Price sees him home, and he meets the wife and stuff.
And
then,
the cat.
And the cat.
And Peter Lorre hates the cat. Peter Lorre hates the cat.
Peter Lorre hates the cat, but
Vincent Price likes the cat.
Loves the cat. So then, obviously, some time passes, and Peter Lorre's out drinking, looking for money again. And in the meantime, Vincent Price and Joyce Jameson have sort of fallen in love or are having a secret affair.
Yeah.
And then Peter Lorre comes home, and he sees that he kind of guesses that his wife is sleeping with.
Well, there was something that happened in the bar. I remember there was a scene where he went to the bar.
The barman said something to him that brought up
He insinuated it when he was drinking.
Yeah.
And he goes something about money or whatever, and he goes, oh, maybe your wife's getting it, somehow, some way, other way or something like that.
Right. And then, so he goes home. He goes home and he sees the bed, and obviously two people have slept in it. So he kills the wife and puts her in the cellar. And then he invites Vincent Price over for a drink. And then he gives him, I guess, poisoned wine or drugged wine. So Vincent Price gets drugged. And then or dies or something. And he puts both of them in the cellar and he starts bricking up the wall. That's from the
Amontillado.
Bricking them up in the wall.
Did he put the cat in there or no?
The cat got in there. He didn't see the cat getting in there, but the cat got in there. So, and he didn't know that. So then, he bricks it.
And he's taunting Price the whole time, when he's putting the bricks in.
Price is like chained to the wall and slowly dying. So then he goes through the house looking for money, and he finds it, and he goes out drinking and carousing, and he said something about the wife to the barman, like, well, she's not going to need money where she's going.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was it. The barman's tips everybody off or whatever. Yeah.
So then he goes home and he's drunk and he's seeing giant lizards and snakes,
like an iguana snake, and he just goes, go away, and he makes them.
And they disappear. And then so two policemen come in and he looks and he goes, go away, and then he touches them and he's going, oh, you're real, and they're like. We got suspicious because the barman heard you say something, and we're just, wondering where your wife is. And it's like, oh, she left. I don't know. And they're like, where'd she go? Says, I don't know. What do you think? I killed her? Or, and I put her in the cellar. I said, well, can we search her house? So he goes, sure, search everywhere. So they start down in the cellar, and he's like, what? They're looking around, and then you can hear Vincent Price and Joyce Jameson talking. He hears them talking, and they're like, "We're over here. We're behind the wall." Oh, and then he'll see them pop up, and you think it might be his, or he thinks it might be his hallucinations.
Yeah, right.
So then he goes to the cops. He says, the police. He says, "Well, where do you think I put her? Under the floor?" And he stomps on the floor. Or how about this wall? This nice strong wall. And he pats the wall. And then the police are about to leave, and suddenly they hear the cat from behind the wall. And and the police look at him and says, "What is behind this wall?" So they break the wall open, and that's where they find Vincent Price,
Joyce Jameson,
and then then you see the black cat hissing, and then it's a quote from the Poe story. I had walls up, the accursed beast.
And that's from the black cat, yeah.
Yeah, that's from the black cat.
So that was a good one. That was a good one. And then they did, when the cat hissed, they cut to a drawing of the cat or something like that.
Yeah, each one ended with, it started with a drawing that faded into the movie, and then it ended, it faded into a drawing of the last scene.
And then the last one is the strange case of M. Valdemar, right?
Yeah. So Vincent Price is terminally ill. Basil Rathbone is
a hypnotist
who is hypnotizing him to feel no pain.
And what was the other guy? Was the other guy the doctor, the young guy? Was he
the other guy's his doctor.
Okay. And then there's his wife. his way young wife for Vincent Price.
So, as Vincent Price is very sick, and that's when you find out that Price has made an agreement with Rathbone that upon his moment of death, he's going to be hypnotized so they can see what's going on. So, Price is nearing death. They call the hypnotist. Rathbone comes in, hypnotizes him. And then Price dies. And then the doctor and Deborah Paget are there, and she's crying. And Rathbone's talking to him. Can you hear me, Valdemar? And you hear Price. You see Price lying there, not moving, but you hear his voice.
But see, that's what I didn't understand. Was he like? Because everybody in the room, the doctor and Paget, I think they were hearing it. Was he like mentally talking to them? Or?
I think so. That or his spirit was somehow.
Yeah, because I didn't understand it because his mouth wasn't moving, so he wasn't talking. But
right. What I'm guessing is his ghost. What happened was after he died, his soul was somehow still trapped in the body because he was hypnotized. And I think they all heard him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the one point when he said, we'll get to that scene. So anyway, the doctor's saying, you gotta release him, you gotta stop this experiment now, it's gruesome, it's grim, Deborah Paget faints, and he's like, I'll never release him, it's too important a thing, and he's asking Price, Rathbone's asking Price, where are you? It's all dark, it's darkness, I see all these people, millions and millions of people and stuff. And, it's really grim. And then you discover that Rathbone has a crush on Vincent Price's wife. But before Price died, he said that his wife, Deborah Paget, should marry the doctor.
Right.
And then some time passes, and Basil Rathbone is writing something down, and he hears Vincent Price going from upstairs, release me, and so he goes upstairs. It's like, stop it, be still. So then the doctor and the Deborah Paget come in, and the doctor's saying, I have a plan to stop this madness. And some time has passed. It looks like there's a scene where you see the castle in fall.
Yeah, that's right. The scene where the castle goes from
like several months have passed.
Yeah.
So then they go upstairs, and Basil Rathbone lets them in, and the doctor pulls out a gun and says, if you don't release him, I'm going to kill you. And Basil Rathbone calls his bluff and says, if you kill me, he's never going to be released. So then the doctor said, well, I'll release him but I want to marry Deborah Paget. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So he says, I have something for you two to hear. So he brings the doctor and Deborah Paget over to Price and says, tell them what you told me. And you hear Price's voice say, I want you to not marry the doctor, but marry Carmichael. That was Basil Rathbone's.
Right.
And then the doctor starts arguing, that's not him talking, that's you, you forced him. And then Deborah Paget goes, please go, please just leave. So the doctor leaves. And then the Basil Rathbone says, well, you heard what your husband said.
Valdemar.
Either you marry me or I'll never release him. And she's like, well, if you don't release him, I'll never marry you. So he attacks her. And she's screaming for help, and the doctor is downstairs, and he hears her screaming. So he goes running upstairs, and he's knocking on the locked door to get in. And in the meantime, she's like fighting him off, and then suddenly you see Vincent Price raise up out of bed, and he starts walking towards Basil Rathbone. Deborah Paget faints. And Vincent Price, he starts like melting, and they do a weird camera effect, and Rathbone's running around screaming, and then finally Vincent Price, all melty, grabs Rathbone by the neck, and then you see them fall, and then the doctor breaks in the door, and he picks up Deborah Paget, and they both look over, and then you see Basil Rathbone lying there with like a disgusting, drippy skeleton lying over.
Yeah.
Vincent Price. And they both go, ugh, and then they,
Well, it seemed like what happened was that, well, according to the story anyway, that the hypnosis kept Price from, decomposing.
Yeah.
And then when the spell wore off, or because of whatever happened, the decomposition started.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Rapid. Yeah, it was an interesting one. Well acted, and it was a good one to end. And when it ended, I'm like, that Roger Corman he's a great director. He knows how to tell a compelling, make a compelling story in the movies.
He did. I mean, comparing to what he did with this, Jock Turner did just, it was a comedy, but you could see like in the hands of, I'm not saying that Turner was a better director than Jock Turner, because Jock Turner did some great movies, but I think he had a better handle on the genre, the subject.
Yeah.
Even though Jock Turner did, Cat People and some of those movies, which were pretty great, but maybe the script was better for this. I don't know.
I think also it's a
different style of movie.
Yeah, a different style of horror movie.
I mean, if in like we talked about in the last episode, in the Comedy of Terrors, if Basil Rathbone, who kept being cataleptic and thought that he was dead, kept coming back, if he kept coming back deteriorated like Price did, it probably would have been a creep element to the movie, as opposed to just, I'm catatonic, I just come back to life all the time. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever,
Yeah, it would have been a better ending or to that movie. And the music is great, Les Baxter.
That's Baxter, yeah.
And the cinematography, the look of the film was Floyd Crosby. He's always good.
David Crosby's dad.
Yeah. So
he was like a classic film director that got blacklisted, and Corman kind of gave him work because he said, "Nah, just come work for me. Nobody will bother you."
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So all in all, it was perfect kind of movie you would go as a kid. You would go see on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And or if it was on TV, you would watch it late at night and get kind of spooked by some of the stuff.
Exactly. The stories went by fast. Yeah. There was a lot of, there was the scary stuff, there was the funny stuff, there was the creepy stuff. Yeah, I can't think of, I mean, are these stories gonna scare the crap out of you? No, but they're well made. Yeah. They're well acted. There are scares in them. There are creepy things in them.
Yeah, very satisfying.
Yeah. This is one of the better Poe movies, I think.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I watched it. And I kind of I was watching it today, and I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty good, actually. I completely forgotten how cool this movie was, so,
Yeah, I remember seeing it as a kid and being like, because when I was
late night TV. When
I was a kid, I really just wanted aliens and monsters. I didn't want the...
A lot of people were like that. I liked the gothic stuff, but a lot of people just wanted to see a Frankenstein monster, a Godzilla monster.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But as I got older, I appreciated it more, and it was pretty good. Good. Yeah, definitely worth watching.
Yeah, it was on. I couldn't find it on YouTube, but Daily Motion had it. I had the movie, but again, a lot of my crap is I got to get into the storage unit. Even though I don't want to bring stuff in here, but at least bring more stuff in here, because I know I have that double feature that they did years ago when MGM called them midnight movies. They would pair two of these movies together. So, but I couldn't on Amazon Prime. They wanted you to join some Paramount Plus or something. I was like, no. No, YouTube didn't have it, but somehow I found that Daily Motion, so I was like, okay.
Yeah, Daily Motion had it. There was a Russian channel that had it, and I found this on Pluto TV, the streaming.
Pluto had it?
Pluto TV had it, yeah.
Oh, so those dirty do bums on Amazon were saying, no, you got to subscribe. They didn't want to tell you that Pluto had it.
Well, I got Roku, and
I do too.
You could do in the main menu. I did a search for it, and there were a couple that you had to pay for, and one was the Amazon, but I saw for free on
Pluto.
Pluto, I'm like, yeah, well, I'm going to watch it for free. I mean, it had commercials in it, but big deal.
Yeah, I watched it on Daily Motion. It was pretty good. I mean, it was a good print. What is Daily Motion, like a Erzat's YouTube or something?
I think it's it was supposed to be a competitor to YouTube.
Okay.
Movie. I'm not sure. But, yeah, it pops up every now and then.
I mean, I know you've picked some movies that I found on there before, so I was like, okay. I don't belong to it. I just typed in Tales of Terror, and then all of a sudden it said video, Daily Motion, and I saw that it was complete. I was like, okay, well, here we go. I can watch it now.
It says Daily Motion is a French video sharing technology platform.
Oh, French. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It's available in 183 languages.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Including the ones that I speak.
There's a lot of stuff that if I can't find it on YouTube, it does show up on...
So it was on Pluto, huh? I didn't think Pluto had that many movies on there. I know there's Pluto, and then there's the other one called Plex that has movies, too.
Yeah, and Tubi will have some movies sometimes.
Tubi had. It wasn't on Tubi.
Yeah. Although sometimes the commercials on Tubi are long.
Yeah.
So, depending on what it is.
Tubi does have like a whole section of Italian thrillers, like giallo movies, and I was like, holy crap, there's a lot of stuff they got, but they didn't have this. I think Tubi had Comedy of Terror. No, Amazon Prime had Comedy of Terror, but they didn't have Tales of Terror, which doesn't make any sense, but whatever. I guess they all fight over the movies or whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
Who the hell knows?
But at any rate, yeah, so, cool movie.
Definitely a watch.
Enjoyed it. I watched it this morning, and it was a breeze. It wasn't like I didn't yawn once. That's a rarity for me.
I think more movies should be like that. The anthologies. Cause sometimes they get too bogged down in these overarching long stories. Like, can you imagine if the Marvel movies were like, instead of having one long movie with all
make them an hour and a half, they would be way better.
Yeah, you could have a couple of episodes, because comics used to do that, have anthology books.
Yeah, I post them all the time on Facebook. Yeah, the horror ones are anthologies.
Yeah. I think horror movies do best in a short form.
Yeah, I think especially Poe, which were short stories. Yeah. Short stories, it's not good when you it's a short story that gets made into a feature-length movie. Yeah. But when a short story becomes an anthology story, that's perfect.
Yeah. I think that's part of the problem with Lovecraft too, because a lot of his stories were on the shorter end, and people, like the Dunwich Horror with what's his name?
Gene Stockwell was in that, wasn't it?
Stockwell and Tuesday Well. That was kind of long. It's like, oh, get on with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a movie that freaked me out one time, because I remember one time I fell asleep watching TV, and I was having these weird dreams with demons. And I woke up and it was the Dunwich Horror was on. It was the scene where Sandra Dee's getting demons all over her or whatever. I was like, oh, I wasn't dreaming. I was watching TV. So anyway, hey, maybe we should watch that next, the Dunwich Horror. I haven't seen that since that bad dream.
Yeah, I'm up for it, man.
Is that Lovecraft? Yeah, it is Lovecraft.
He wrote the Dunwich Horror. Although that story doesn't match the movie.
Oh, okay. Well, then we can talk about that.
The Dean Stockwell character is deformed.
Oh.
And
because I know you're a Lovecraft guy, so I figured, hey, we'll do that, and you can talk about the differences between, which I'm sure are many, between the movie and the short. Is it a short story or is it a novelette? Do you remember?
I think it's a shorter novel, I think. I don't know if it's that.
I always thought that was a funny term, a novelette. What is it, novelette? I don't know, it's only 100 pages as opposed to 200 pages. I mean,
they used to call it a novella. Now they call it
a novella. Yeah, a novella, yeah. Because now a novella is a Spanish soap opera, So I guess I guess the Spanish opera was sold the novella, so that's novelette or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
But anyway, so yeah, cool movie. Price was great. Peter Lorre was, in that scene, I almost said that Peter Lorre stole the story, but no, both him and Price were like perfect. Price was funny as crap, and Peter Lorre was great. So it's probably one of my favorite things that I've seen of Peter Lorre. So
yeah, very good. He was an underrated actor, and unfortunately, about that time, a lot of actors as they get old, they just sort of get cast aside by Hollywood.
Well, that was they were working guys, and the horror movies paid them. And I think these guys, I know about what Peter Lorre's story is, but I know Karloff had money, but he wanted to work, so he took whatever he could take,
Yeah, exactly.
Also, remember, they were doing TV
episodes,
he was doing
Thriller, and
they were doing Twilight Zone, Thriller, all that stuff. I mean, Lorre was in a couple of classic he was in a couple of classic Alfred Hitchcock episodes too. Yeah. So they were doing other things, television appearances. Lorre was in a Jack Benny show, which was funny as crap. They would be guests on talk shows. They got around. Yeah. But then these movies kind of like you said, the mainstream movies were kind of like old stars, and they were typecast maybe. They wanted new people or something. I don't know. I don't know the exact reason, but I think these guys just like to work, so they took whatever they could get. Yeah, well,
they're actors. They're not stars. I don't know. Hollywood's gotten weird. Oh, it was probably always weird, but
that's weirder.
Yeah, now it's weirder.
Yeah, because Karloff was even doing, like, at the end of his life, like these Mexican horror movies, but he got paid a lot for them, so I guess,
You know what? If I was him, I'd do it too.
Right.
Money's money.
You're going to get paid hundreds of thousands to do these, like, not that Corman did, but apparently these Mexican movies that he did, like in '68, which he did bit parts in them, they paid him a lot of money, and I was like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll do it. All I got to do is sit in a wheelchair, and because I can't walk around. Okay, sure, why not,
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, Karloff was doing, like, The Grinch, and he was doing, like, all that other. They would do records, too, like Boris Karloff's Tales of the Frightened. I have some of those records. I have a Basil Rathbone.
His name to some paperback horror story anthologies.
Yeah, so did Alfred Hitchcock.
They had nothing to do with, but they...
All those Alfred Hitchcock Tales of Mystery, I remember, Boris Karloff's comic book, which he had his face on. Yeah. Boris Karloff's Tales of Mystery or whatever. They drew him in every...
he was like it was like...
Friedel Comics. He was like the Rod Sterling of the comics or whatever, Yeah. So, he was everywhere. I mean, especially him. Lorre was getting stuff done, was doing stuff, but Boris Karloff had the... Bella was gone already. Lon Chaney was kind of, I think he was kind of like, he was, what, Lon Chaney did a lot of Westerns. He shows up on Wagon Train and Death Valley Days and all that stuff. So he was working, but by that time he was getting to be like a pretty bad alcoholic or whatever. So and he did that.
I've seen photos of him when he was young. It's like, man, he's handsome as hell.
Yeah, John Chaney Jr.
All that alcohol, his nose got swollen.
In the 50s, the alcohol just killed him, It just changed his appearance. He became like a straggling, like a creepy old guy or whatever, whereas in the 40s he could still be a leading man. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah. But he was still doing a lot of Westerns. He also put up a lot of weight too in the 50s and 60s. So he did a lot of Westerns. Lorre did a lot of, his career I'm not, that in tune with as opposed to the other guys, but he was around doing stuff.
I think he came to horror late. He was mostly played bad villains in like.
He plays villains, yeah. Well, remember he used to play Mr. Moto too, like in the 40s. Like playing a Japanese detective.
He was in the Maltese Falcon, wasn't he?
He was in the Maltese Falcon, yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of his more famous movies, with Bogart and that was a biggie, yeah. But he was doing like he was doing a lot of work, on and off. I guess by the 50s, the work started. The B movies, nobody, again, I mean, I've read books on B movies, but nobody today's day and age, I shouldn't say nobody, but a lot of people don't realize how big B movies were.
Mm.
I mean, you always had your A pictures and all that, but drive-ins, these movies were all the drive-ins, man,
Yeah.
and by the early 60s, they were on TV too.
I remember as a kid, you could still go to the movie theater and see two different movies.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a cartoon in the middle between the two. So, yeah, you'd pay your 75 cents or whatever, and you'd...
Especially if the movies were only like 75 minutes or something, then they did two movies and, whatever, a cartoon.
Yeah, well, I remember seeing 1 Million Years BC and, that one about the Sargasso Sea with all the weird blood-sucking monsters. What the hell was that?
The Lost Continent?
Yeah, The Lost Continent.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, there was a double feature, so you'd go and you'd be gone for like 2 hours. You'd be
gone for 3 hours.
Go to movies. You'd be gone for like 2.5, 3 hours.
All that, but,
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. We digress. Anyway, yeah, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. I guess we both enjoyed Tales of Terror.
Yes, very good movie.
And said, let's watch this, but I didn't ask you, is it okay with you?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
And after, and then we can
watch more movies.
All right, we got it right this time.